Hello, all my little Luxes. Welcome to another little channel of horrors. And I am your host, Tressie Lux. And with me is my best friend and partner in crime.
It's DC. I almost said my real name for like a half a second. I was like, oh shit.
It's not like I haven't said it a few times on here.
Yeah. I had trouble. Like Michaela was talking to someone on Twitter and she was typing and she typed DC and then she was just like, why don't you just use your fucking real name? And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's funny at this point now. Because everyone's like, oh, does DC stand for something?
Yeah, Death Curse.
Death Curse. It's confusing because when they find out my name actually starts with a D, they're like, oh, then what's your last name? It must start with a C. No, there's no C in my name. Actually, there is a C in my last name, but it's not the first letter.
Not the first letter, though.
Yeah, so we're here.
Yeah, thinking about that, like how many times people were like, what does DC stand for? And it's like, well, you do know if you go to his page, it will tell you Death Curse Pod, right? For his Death Curse podcast.
Yeah. This is yeah. But yeah, we're back to the what
our faves.
Yes, the favorites or the choosings. You know, we are not doing just random stuff or Twitter chosen things now. We're just gonna go back to choosing our own for a few. This is it.
Oh. Which for our last episode, for the Scream episode, I definitely want to say a big thank you that you guys got our episode up to over 100 views. So thank you very much for participating and joining with us. And
Yep, you froze on me.
You know what? We couldn't be any happier. So
yeah, it worked.
Did I freeze?
Just a little bit. It's okay. It happens.
Where we freeze at?
It's okay. It'll just leave it in there and it'll be all right. Because it's like a half a second. It just freezes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Like, it's not like we missed anything important. It was just a thank you, and you actually said everything. It's just you froze. But no, yes, it was awesome. I'm still kind of flabbergasted that they chose The Faculty over everything, though. Because I mean, me personally, I'm not down in the movie. The movie was good. It's just like, of all the movies we had listed, it was the worst on the list. It's like, why? Like, out of Event Horizon, like out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Shining, like you chose The Faculty. Out of Mimic, I would have chose Mimic over the Faculty, because Mimic's a bomb ass movie.
But Mimic is also another one of my top faves. So.
But I honestly have like a massive hard on for Guillermo del Toro, though. So like, I love that dude. Like, everything he's done is just phenomenal. Like Pan's Labyrinth, Devil's Backbone, The Orphanage, all that stuff. He's so good. And then Mimic was like his first American movie, and it was so good. And Norman Reedus was in it, and not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
So
I like his character in that one too.
Yes, it's so good.
Very short role though.
Well, no, like Norman Reedus was in Pandorum, the Dennis Quaid space movie, and not a lot of people knew that Norman Reedus was in that either, because a lot of times he plays like small roles. Like even Blade 2, everyone remembers him from Blade 2, but Scud or whatever the heck,
Scud,
whatever the hell his name was.
Like Scud, but Scud.
Yeah, he is only actually in that film for a very limited amount of time. And but also Blade 2 was Guillermo del Toro, so kind of comes full circle. But this is, as you can tell, Nightmare on Elm Street. So.
Yes, which is one of my top favorite horror movies. And this thing gets a lot of nicknames and different names, but mostly it's known for Nightmare on Elm Street, and it originally came out in 1984. And of course, we have the amazing cast with Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. And there is no better Freddy Krueger than Englund. And to think that since he's classically trained with everything that he does, and where he got his character ideas. I didn't know until recently that one of his character ideas was kind of basing it off of Nosferatu. So it makes sense when you're thinking about, Yeah, kind of has the creepy vampiric vibe to it.
And I mean, I got the that 4 hour documentary, that Never Sleep Again. It's a phenomenal documentary, but it's like, yeah, I learned a lot about that movie through that. And I've had all the freaking DVD box sets through the years and all that, and you can learn so much through that. And it's like, it's crazy. And this was one of the first ones, like I've said it before, like my fiance was, I want to confuse a lot of people because I call her my wife and my fiance, but she is actually my fiance. We are not legally married, but this was one
On
of the
your
first.
way.
It will be next year, but this was one of the first ones I ever showed her, and it's because she is a massive fan of Pirates of the Caribbean, and that is in no small part because of Johnny Depp. And I was like, "Oh, you want to see Johnny Depp's first movie?" She's like,
You want to
"Yeah."
see introducing a baby Johnny
Yes.
Depp?
And I was like, and she was like, "Oh man, I wonder how we got this part." It's like, Wes Craven's daughters had a
Story.
crush on him, and they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, bring him in there." But
He was gonna pick someone else, and his
yes.
daughter was so smitten with him.
Yes, and it's like, we got to bring him in, and I was like, now I got to warn you beforehand. This is Johnny Depp's first movie, and he's not great in it. Like, dude, he's terrible in it. Not terrible. He's just bad in this movie, and really, the
Getting
acting is
comfortable.
not the best part of this movie. It's got a fantastic story. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites ever, but I do believe that it has the worst delivered line in the history of horror in this movie. And it's when Nancy's mom finally picks her up from school after having that conniption in class, and she says, "I'm gonna get her some real help." And I'm like, oh my God, it's so bad. Ugh. Up yours with a twirling lawnmower. It's like, God, dude.
I mean, I get with her
That's a good
character.
movie.
She was supposed to be like the single mother, alcoholic idea. But yeah, some of those lines, it's just like,
You're cringy. But it's good. But it's the weirdest part about this is like, this is where all my confusion comes in, because Freddy is my favorite horror character, but Nightmare on Elm Street is not my favorite series, and Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't have my favorite kills, and my favorite horror movie of all the series is not in Nightmare on Elm Street. In fact, all four of those things are in different series. It's like, Freddy's my favorite, Jason has my favorite kills, Halloween is my favorite horror movie of all those, and Child's Play is my favorite series. Because Child's Play doesn't have a bad movie in the bunch. And there's like Nightmare on Elm Street has Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and Freddy's Dead, which are just the worst. And Friday the 13th has Jason Goes to Hell. Halloween has probably the worst movie of all, which is Resurrection. And Child's Play, I loved 1, 2, 3, Bride, Seed, Curse, Cult, and I even loved the remake. So like, Child's Play was it for me. That's why he's front and center right in the middle here. I can't turn my thing. It's front and center, right? Look, where it is. It's backwards. So Chucky's right there. But
throwing it backwards for you, thinking mirror wise.
Yes, I love it. Like, and I love Freddy, because Freddy was I don't know, he just has so much personality. And it's fun. I mean,
because of English.
he does. He has the personality, and he's fun to watch, and he has a lot of cool kills. But Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is not that. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is, oh my God. Like, it didn't scare me, but if there's going to be a movie that's going to scare you, it's this. Because it's like, this is terrifying to think about. And it's based off kind of a true story. So let me get this hair away. So it's like, it's Wes Craven did kind of base this off a true story. And I don't know if you know that story, but you could probably tell.
I know it in bits and pieces, is that he, around the time after he started hearing stories about these Asian men were very young, healthy men, were having these weird sleep paralysis dreams. and literally were so petrified that they wouldn't allow themselves to go to sleep. And then when they finally would go to sleep, they would wake up suddenly in a panic, thinking that somebody was out to kill them. And they literally would die in real life. And even with tests and monitors and any autopsies, they kept saying that they didn't die of heart failure, that they just died.
Yeah.
So of course, Wes Craven was like fascinated with it, especially with the last story where he said that literally this family was trying to help their son, like, just go to sleep. They were giving him sleeping pills. They would find the sleeping pills under this guy's pillows the next day. He was sneaking a coffee pot into his room so he could drink coffee and not sleep, which is very prevalent with Nancy's character in, of course, Nightmare. She does the same thing. That the family was downstairs, I guess they were watching a movie. He fell asleep. The family took him up to bed. All they know is that, like, within an hour later, they heard this scream, went upstairs, and the guy was dead. Nobody could solve anything. So it's based on a true story, and nobody to this day can tell you what happened with these deaths. But every single one of them had a similar story, that they thought someone was out to kill them and that they were going to die in their dreams. So we end up with Nightmare on Elm Street.
So good. So good. Yeah. And speaking of Nancy, that is my absolute favorite final girl of all time. Nancy, because she was never like, she never ran from Freddy. She has moments in the dreams where she's just like, oh my God, what's that? And wants to wake up, but immediately wants to go back in and find this guy. And she is the anti-bullying queen. Like she did, and she fought so hard. No one has ever fought a movie monster like she did. Not even everyone's favorite's Laurie Strode, but Laurie Strode hid in a closet and cried. Nancy never did that. Nancy was like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm gonna go kick his ass. And then she learns how to make booby traps, and she booby traps her house. And while she does not save her mother, she definitely defeats evil, and it's very, very cool. And they should have ended the movie at Freddy disappearing. Even Wes Craven says that. Wes Craven even hates the ending to this movie, and it's like, this is possibly the worst ending of any horror movie. The mannequin pulled through the window is just like, you're like, oh my God, that was terrible.
And that was not a decision by Wes Craven. That was a decision by one of the producers, where they're like,
Robert Shea did that.
Yeah. Yep. Robert Shea. And that he's like, you need to be like all the other horror movies where we can't have this happy ending. We got to have the typical, like, what's going to happen, or is he really dead? And I mean, which you still could with Freddy, because just because Nancy defeated him doesn't mean that somebody else can't, which is obviously what happens in the future. But
yeah, and Jesse from part 2 didn't defeat him. Jesse, our final, I'm going to say final girl. Our final girl, Jesse.
Yeah.
Yes. And those who haven't seen what was it called? My Nightmare on Elm Street. Holy balls, that's a good freaking documentary. It actually made me appreciate part 2 a lot more. But he didn't defeat Freddy. His girlfriend did. So I can't remember his girlfriend's name. But the whole Robert Shea, the whole Robert Shea changing the ending thing actually destroyed Robert Shea and Wes Craven's relationship. Like they weren't friends for a very long time, and it took Robert Shea forever for him to pull Wes Craven back in for Nightmare 3. And he didn't direct Nightmare 3, he just wrote Nightmare 3. And of course, Nancy came back, and I think 3, I don't remember if it's 3 or 4. I think it was 3, but Frank Darabont actually helped write 3 or 4. I don't know which one it was. But yeah, Frank Darabont, we talked about him with The Mist and Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption. So he's actually, I don't think he did. Did Frank Darabont do Shawshank Redemption? Yeah, he did.
I think you mentioned that before, because you had said he had originally done them in black and white, but every single time he took them to a studio, they're like, no, put it in color.
He did. He helped write. He helped write Nightmare on Elm Street, because I mean, this was back in the day when he was an up and coming writer and stuff like that. And I don't even think he may not even be credited. Yeah, it was 3. I just looked it up. It was 3. He isn't even credited, but he did help write 3. So good on you, Frank Darabont. So yeah, and arguably one of the best sequels in the history of horror. So yes, I love it.
And it's been so long since I've watched any of the sequels that go, because I mean, I usually end up watching, for whatever reason, it's usually Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, or Freddy vs. Jason. It's usually the two that I end up watching the most.
Well, Freddy vs. Jason's a freaking fun time. It wasn't a great movie, but it was a fun time.
No.
I saw it in theaters and it was awesome. Saw it in theaters, and this is gonna kind of be like, it may be controversial what I'm about to say, but almost I would say 60% of the people in that theater were Black. Best movie experience I've ever had in my life, because we were in there and it was straight up stereotypical. Don't go in there. Don't you go in there, girl. And I'm like, yes, I've always wanted this. And like, it was glorious. And like, I was like sitting next to all these African American people, and every time someone would kill, we turn around, we high five. Yeah, all right. It's like that was the funnest experience I've ever had in a theater. I love it. I love Freddy vs. Jason. I saw it twice in theaters. And also Nightmare 3, best freaking poster ever for a reason.
That's what your tattoo is based off of. Yeah.
I got it tattooed on me. Yeah. I got this too. I wore Freddy to, yeah.
Well, obviously I wear my little bit of my Freddy cosplay for mine, so
yeah, best pick, one of the best pictures you ever sent me ever was from that cosplay. So it's very cool, very cool.
Some of my favorite photos in there, and also the fun weird photos where it's like, I swear to God, my shadow looks like Alfred Hitchcock. It's really weird.
No, this, I don't know. It's just it has so much history. Like, this is it's very strange that this isn't my favorite horror movie, because I mean, this Nightmare on Elm Street has so much freaking history. It's a good movie. It's one of the best stories you'll ever have in a horror movie. Yeah, the acting isn't great. It has some of the best kills. Hell, people almost died.
Not having.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
People almost died making this movie. So
which ones?
You
probably have a little more backstory with it than I would.
Oh, no, isn't it? You know, like when Tina dies, they use the spinning room where they spin it upside down. She goes on top. But they also use the same room for Glenn's death, Johnny Depp, when they turn it upside down and the water pours out of the thing. The problem was, this was a finite box with only 3 walls, 3 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. So there was an open end so they could film it. They had it upright. When they turned it upside down, the water poured out, and you can actually see in the film when the water's pouring out and you see the lamp and the blood kind of starts going sideways. It's because when the water pours out, the thing started to tip, and when it tipped, the water poured out of the room and got all over electrical equipment and almost killed like 12 people through electrocution.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So 12 people almost died making this movie. Luckily, no one did, but that is a true story. So this thing has a ton of history and a ton of personal history for me. So it's like, I have no idea why this isn't my favorite movie. It is the, when I'm buying horror movies, like, this was the first VHS I bought. This was the first DVD I bought. The first ever box set I bought was the Nightmare on Elm Street box set. The first ever Blu-ray box set I bought was the Nightmare on Elm Street box set. So I have no clue why this is not my favorite. I think it's because I've seen it so much. So.
It could be. I mean, obviously Freddy Krueger's my favorite serial killer, and my favorite of the whole franchise is Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I'm also the same as you. Like, it's not my favorite series from all of them, but But yeah, you had just mentioned the scenes with the room that they created. Maybe we should touch base a little bit on that, like the fact that anybody who's seen Nightmare on Elm Street, the scenes with it's Tina, I believe it's Tina, where she is killed. You see her character going up a wall in that. They actually create an entire room that was made to rotate and spin. And I think it was like 2 or 3 guys that would
They would just
turn
crank
it by hand.
Yep.
Yeah. And where especially the scene with the boyfriend that as far as I know, they had him attached to the floor so that he wouldn't move when they would spin it. And they even had to lacquer his hair so it wouldn't move.
It was forced perception. He was sitting outside of the room. So the room was spinning and he was outside of it. They had the camera directly behind his head. So it looked like he was big. The room was small. So it's like forced perception. He wasn't even in the room. He was just outside of it while they were spinning.
See, I heard a totally different thing in the documentary I watched that they literally were, the crew was talking and they had said that they had attached him to the floor so that when they spun, he would be in the same spot when Nancy was moving. So they might have done both. They might have done both sides.
I mean, because the room that was spinning, yeah, it could work because the room that was spinning, they would probably have to strap him down in the lower corner and then force perception behind him. So it could be that. Don't know.
Yeah.
Have to look it up.
But so that you have the actress who played Tina. I apologize, I can't remember her name at the moment.
Or no, sorry, Amanda Weiss. Amanda Weiss.
And which that she hasn't aged. I swear to God,
she's on Twitter. I'm like, what the? She's so damn pretty, and she's like in her 40s, 50s. I'm like, God.
I don't think she's aged, but so when they spin that, her character was to move with the room in that and to be careful. But oh my God, I can't imagine. And knowing that that's how that scene was, it's like, oh my God, I can't imagine the amount of vertigo I would feel. And then to find out that it's the same room that they used for Glenn. But it makes sense because you're looking at the camera at a different angle than what really was happening. So
it's so cool. They're such a good idea. I don't know. And they've used that. That was the first time it was ever used, but many movies have used that since. So it's like, I think even Inception used that. So it was just, it was a beautiful little movie. I mean, it's just, and it wasn't supposed to be as popular as it was. It was supposed to be one of those B movie, just
low budget
drive-in horror, and it took off. I mean, because at the time, Wes Craven was wanting to get out of horror. He was like, I want to go do something serious, and then he just did that. But because he had just done, or not just done, but he had just kind of come off the controversy of Last House on the Left, which he did with Sean S. Cunningham, who would go on to make Friday the 13th. So like it was, he did not a movie that I enjoy watching. So
he also did around that time, I think, The Hills Have Eyes as well, didn't he?
He did Hills Have Eyes,
which would have had more controversy. So.
Yes. Hills Have Eyes 2, I think should have more controversy because that is the only movie I've ever seen with a dog flashback. Like the dog, Hills Have Eyes 2, watch it. There is a dog, a German Shepherd that's like sitting there and they like have a flashback of him being chased. And I'm like, this dog is literally having a flashback. He's like daydreaming. Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I love it. And it's, I mean, Wes Craven, like, he's the king. He's awesome. I mean, I can't say he's a better director than John Carpenter, but he's up there with him. But I mean,
right up there.
Yeah, this isn't my favorite of the series. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 was actually not. Wes Craven's New Nightmare is actually my favorite of the series. I adore that movie, but because I like meta stuff, and without Wes Craven's New Nightmare, we would have never had Scream. So,
very true.
Yeah, because he found out that the meta thing works. Like, if you are having a very self-aware horror movie, people will like it. And 2 years later, he made Scream, which is probably the most self-aware horror movie. So it's very, very cool the way he did it. I mean, he's just brilliant. And I think I saw that when I was like 12. So Wes Craven's New Nightmare was, and I remember not liking it the first time I saw it. But then I watched it as an adult.
I think a lot of people didn't
Yeah.
when it first came out.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of that is based on a true story. Heather Langenkamp really did have a stalker, and he really would call her and do the Freddy voice, and he really would send her letters. And like during the movie, a lot of that movie takes place during earthquakes, and they really were having earthquakes in Los Angeles at the time. So it's like
So
a
they
lot of that
probably
movie,
just worked him in the film.
yes. She really is married. Heather Langenkamp really is married to a special effects artist. She really does have a son. She didn't at the time. She got pregnant during Wes Craven's New Nightmare, ended up having a son, which is very cool. His name was not Jacob or whatever the crap.
Yeah.
But it's very cool, man. I love it. And, and then that had the scene where the little boy is watching Nightmare on Elm Street. And I was like, oh, I can relate to that. So, because Nightmare on Elm Street is the first horror movie I ever watched ever. So,
which I'm excited to hear this story.
Because it's both like weird and super adorable. My mother used to tell me all the time, because I would be in my room watching horror movies when I was like 11 or 12. I still actually, weirdly enough, hadn't found my true love for horror movie, because the horror movies, that didn't come until I was like 14 or 15. But like I would sit there and I'd watch these movies like Friday the 13th, stuff like that, Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was never scared of them. Like, this is, oh yeah, this is cool. I like how this guy killed this guy. And my mother was like, of course, because you have been watching horror movies since you were 2 years old. Of course, I don't know that. I don't remember being 2. But the story she
most people don't.
Yes. The story she tells is that I was being babysat by my normal babysitter, and they were talking about watching this nightmare movie over and over, and I was 2 years old. They put me down to sleep on the couch with them, and I was asleep. So they started watching this movie. And I woke up afterwards, everything's fine. And my mom would put me to bed that night, and I would say, good night, mommy. Don't let Freddy prat you. She had no idea what the hell I was saying. Like, prat you, I don't know what that means. And like weeks later, she was finally like, does he tell you good night? Don't let Freddy prat you. And she's like, he mentioned Freddy. It turns out I was faking being asleep so I could watch the movie at 2 years old. Yeah. And what I was saying is, don't let Freddy scratch you. And so this was when I was almost 3. So October came and passed. I was 3. And then I was 4 years old going into Halloween. And she was asking, my mom would always ask me what I want to be. So when I was 4 years old, I was Freddy Krueger for Halloween. Yeah, because I was in love with Freddy Krueger as a 4-year-old. And she would even put that movie on for me to fall asleep to it sometimes. So yeah, I was a little messed up psychopath.
Oh, typical DC.
I was a messed up psychopath when I was a child.
Definitely not my first experience.
That's good stuff. Oh well. Yeah,
well, you knew even back then it was fake, so
yeah, I don't know if I knew it was fake or anything, but I know that my mom used to tell me that I wanted a waterbed for the longest time. Like when I was, 5 or 6, I would want a waterbed. And my brother had a waterbed, and I was disappointed when the water didn't gush out. So, yeah. Oh, well.
Which, sad stories for Glenn.
Poor Glenn. Don't fall asleep. Glenn in his crop top.
She warned him. Those were in style back then, and those crop tops are still weird.
And then he's like, right before he dies, what are you watching? Miss Nude America. Well, how can you hear what they're going to say? Who cares what they're going to say?
What they're saying.
My exact words. That would be me right there. Who cares what they're going to say? Like, it's so brilliant. And then the phone.
I just love. Yeah. Well, one of the many, many props that Wes Craven kind of came up with and that they had created on the spot and gave lovely Heather Lancaster nightmares for years to come.
Langenkamp.
Thank you.
Yes.
I always remember her name as Heather, but I can never remember her last name.
Man, it's the only person I've ever seen with the name Langenkamp. So
yeah,
And she
Yeah.
really didn't go on to do much more. Like she was just kind of there, she did movies. She's actually a major producer now. She
Hmm.
produces horror movies. So that's super awesome. Yes.
So just going through the cycle now and going back, and I always liked her as an actress.
Yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
you might give Johnny Depp a hard time about his acting in the movie, but she did a spectacular job in
yeah,
it. So
she had some lines that were a little difficult, but I think that didn't come out well. But I think hers was more of she hadn't found that spot, that character yet, because they
Mhm.
filmed it out of sequence. So it's like you can tell, like in some parts she's really good, in some parts she's not so great, because she just hadn't found her stride yet. Johnny Depp never really found his stride in that movie. He's not, and the guy who played oh my god, like Roger,
Rod,
Rod,
Rod.
Rod, what dude who played Rod he's like up yours with a twirling lawnmower. What?
I mean, he's had a very short role in that film.
Yeah, but we are forgetting the freaking man himself is in this. Freaking John Saxon. Like
Hmm.
that is my dude. People don't understand. I love that guy. Like I love John Saxon the way people love that dude from God, Halloween 3. What the heck's his name that everyone's obsessed over?
Oh yeah, yeah.
God, yeah, dude, everyone loves that guy. And I'm like, I love him too, but John Saxon, he is a student of Bruce Lee. Like,
Hmm.
you can't get any cooler than that. But whatever. He was in Enter the Dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is true.
But yeah, he's wonderful in the movie. He's wonderful in part 3. He's wonderful in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It's just, oh man, I love that stuff. But oh, geez. No, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of the movies that Heather Langenkamp has actually
Been in other than
produced, because
produced, not been in.
yes, she's produced some crazy, like, people, like people, like, a lot of the biggest horror movies out right now Heather Langenkamp produced, and it's very cool. But I can't really see anything here.
I was gonna make the joke reference that the most recent time that I've watched Nightmare on Elm Street, I had noticed something that when Nancy's character is looking in the mirror and she makes that reference, she's like, God, I look like I'm 20 years old. And I'm like, you know what? The jokes that you and I have been saying for horror movies and that, and I looked back and I'm like, dude, she was 20 years old.
Yeah,
when
she
they
was
made this
19, I think,
film.
when she did this movie. So yeah,
Mhm.
she's 20,
It's
and
an inside joke that they kind of threw in there, and I'm like, I see that cleverness there.
okay, here we go. I was wrong. She's not a producer. She is a a special makeup effects coordinator, and she
Okay.
was for the remake of Dawn of the Dead, Cinderella Man, Evan Almighty, and Cabin in the Woods.
Okay. So yeah,
That's the
she's
one I
done
remember.
quite a bit then.
Yeah, I saw Cabin in the Woods in theaters, and it said Heather Langenkamp, and I'm like, whoa,
Oh.
yeah, very cool. Like it. So, well, I mean, this whole production was just, it's insane, and I think they did it in a very short amount of time. Like,
I
so
think
cool.
32 days,
Yeah. Gosh.
and they still technically were going over
Yeah.
time budget or just budget in general, which the first day, the opening day, they made back their budget. So I mean,
Yeah.
they were like number one in the box office, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, in this one, it went unopposed. Like there wasn't really anything out at the time that could stop it. Besides big blockbusters. I'm talking about, like, whenever these movies get released back in the 80s, they weren't released with the blockbusters. They were shown at completely different times, stuff like that. So a lot of the times, it's not like now where The Conjuring is coming out with Fast and the Furious. It's like, no, The Conjuring would come out at 10, Fast and Furious would come out at 7. And it's like, and you couldn't really watch them both. So it's completely different time. And this one just absolutely slaughtered everyone else. And like, that's not,
Mhm.
no pun intended. Like, this is absolute decimation. And there had already been what, uh 3 or 4 Friday the 13th before this came out.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, in this one, we're
And
just
you
like,
already had Halloween, obviously. So
the only one that had we had Halloween, but Halloween 2 hadn't. I don't think Halloween 2 had come. No, Halloween 2 did come out because I think it came out in 82. And this was,
yeah.
so Halloween 2. So the slashers were starting to pick up again. And then Wes Craven's like, well, this is not exactly a slasher. It's like, this is kind of a supernatural thing. And it's probably the reason why you have so much supernatural stuff now. Like, why Jason's suddenly a zombie and yeah, stuff like that. Like,
Or, you know, Jason Goes to Hell, that he technically becomes a poltergeist.
that I see. This is the thing I don't understand. This thing about like Jason Goes to Hell, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this. That is a brilliant idea. Like, that was a phenomenal plot, but it was so fucking poorly executed. Like, it's like, oh my god, I hated that movie. It had some great kills, but man, I hated that movie. Like, Jesus, I try to skip that. If I'm watching them in a row, I'm like, no. And then I skip New Blood too. I hate New Blood. God, I hate that movie. It's like Carrie versus
I
Jason.
know how much you hate it. I was watching it. God, what this would have been back in November when I was watching that, and you're like,
no. Like,
Carrie
let's have a
versus
watch
Jason.
party with New Blood. And I'm like, I will have so many people pissed off at me because I would be doing nothing but making fun of that movie through the whole thing. Because I mean, the special
what we
effects
do.
are terrible. Ugh. The acting is horrendous in that movie. Like, and whenever I say it, people are like, well, you're not supposed to count the acting in a horror movie. I'm like, fuck, I don't. Like, if it's supposed to be a serious movie, yeah, you do. God. No, you don't count the acting in something like Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 or something that's supposed to be ridiculous. But if it's a serious horror movie like Halloween, then yes, you count the acting.
Oh,
God.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially if the kid actors are doing a better job than the adults. Oh yeah.
Oh man, it's bad. like when Danielle Harris is acting circles around everyone else in Halloween 5, and you're just like, what the heck is her baby? The girl's name, Tina.
Oh my god,
I wanted
remember.
to fucking strangle Tina through that whole movie. I'm like, you are the most annoying. I would spend 24 hours with Franklin from Texas Chainsaw Massacre before I'd spend 24 hours with Tina from Halloween 5. Just choke that.
A lot. That is saying a lot. Oh my god.
Yes. But I would spend 24 hours with both of them at the same time before I'd spend 24 hours with the little girl from Psycho Goreman. She was so annoying. Like, she's such a little brat. Like, God, I would punch that little girl.
But just think how amazing the actress is then.
Yeah.
She did her job, damn it.
Oh, dude, I don't fault her at all for being a bad actress. Just the character was just, oh my God. And I'm the only person I know of. I haven't seen one person on Twitter that's like, oh, Psycho Goreman wasn't that good. Everyone else like, oh, it's phenomenal. I'm like, like, why am I always the one that hates these movies? But I love the fact that it's getting, I love the fact that it's getting so much notoriety, because that's really what we need right now. We need smaller horror movies to be big. Like, because without that, like, we could have another resurgence of awesome horror movies. Like Nightmare on Elm Street was a tiny little movie and it was huge and it caused this huge resurgence. Like, we need that. So please, even though I hated Psycho Goreman, bring it on, man. Make more. Like, make Psycho Goreman 2. Go for it, please. Like, we need this. I mean, we wouldn't have Hatchet. Like, Hatchet's a fucking classic, and it's so tiny. It's so good.
Which another Danielle Harris. Granted, she doesn't show up till the second movie, but
yes. But still, like, it's Danielle Harris, and I mean, but Hatchet's just, and Kane Hodder, and I think Robert Englund is in. I think he's in one of them. I think. No, it's just Kane Hodder. And
now that you say that, I'm like, no, because it's Tony Todd.
It's Tony Todd.
I think it's Tony Todd.
But Robert Englund was in Wishmaster.
Urban Legend.
Yeah, I think he was in Wishmaster.
Wishmaster.
Yeah, they were all in Wishmaster. Like, Kane Hodder was there, Tony Todd, and I was like, what the hell? So I don't know, but I love it. I love that crap.
There's another
Strawberry.
franchise that people don't really talk about is Wishmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as good as the other ones, but I don't mind Wishmaster.
I would put it just under Hellraiser, because
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
Hellraiser is not a great series. Like 1 and 2 are really good, but then 3
Mhm.
through 28, whatever they're on now, is just no. They're just
It's
not.
about
Bloodline
how
was good.
gruesome they can get with the deaths. But I mean, some of them are really cool fucking deaths, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Bloodline was really good. I actually liked Bloodline, but it's just, you know. Yeah. Let's see.
But so
No, Robert
obviously
Englund was in Hatchet.
oh my
He was
god,
the fisherman. I knew he was in there. Yes.
he did do the little cameo on that, didn't he?
Yes, I knew it.
Cameo can be
I
done.
love that dude. I read his book. I read his book, Hollywood Monster, and it was very, very good. So very cool. I'm like, I don't know, man. Ready.
Well, okay, so for the life story, you had told about your babysitting story. So, of course, the idea that I kind of had for this one was thinking, like, okay, let's talk about some of our worst dreams, which you kind of have a weird thing that goes on now where you don't actually have dreams anymore.
Michaela says that I do, because she says I talk in my sleep and stuff like that, but I don't remember them at all, because when I'm asleep, my brain kind of shuts down, and it's very hard to wake me up, stuff like that. I have something like a lot of people I don't really talk about it much, but I have epilepsy, so it's like, and I have seizures at night, and so my brain kind of just shuts down. I don't know if that's like a coping mechanism or something to keep me from having seizures, but I don't really have dreams. But when I was a teenager, I had night terrors really, really bad, where I'd wake up screaming, and but the thing is, I don't remember any of those. I can't even begin to tell you what they were about. So it's like, it's just stuff that happened. Probably is more than likely my parents dying, because like, that's one thing I have in my life that like I'm very blessed and thankful for, is I had parents that were like together my whole life, and they were very loving and very affectionate. My dad took me golfing and did things with me. My mom would watch movies with me, and she and listen to music, and she would like basically do anything for me. And I grew up extremely poor. Like we skipped Christmases, like that kind of stuff. But I mean, there was parts where I would eat like a small sandwich for dinner, and my parents wouldn't eat it all, stuff like that kind of poor. And but I still had loving parents that loved me unconditionally, and my dad's still one of my best friends. And my mom passed like 3 years ago, but and that was one of my worst nightmares. So like I guarantee you those night terrors were of my parents dying, but because I don't like, they were my world for forever. I was very, very blessed in having wonderful parents. So that just shows you, man, money isn't everything. Like we were dirt poor, and I still loved my life because I had my homies and my parents. So, but other than that, I mean, I'm sorry that I don't have these weird dreams with dragons and shit, but I didn't have it. Like, I know I had a dream once where Freddy Krueger saved my life, where where the school bully was bullying me and Freddy killed him. I had that one time.
Which is ironic because Freddy's character was named after a Wes Craven bully named Fred.
Yep, named Fred. Old Fred. Yeah, or not all, but most of the antagonists in Wes Craven's movies are named after people in his life. Fred Krueger. Holy crap, the dude from Last House on the Left, Krug, because it was named Krueger. He used Krug again for Freddy Krueger. So Krug was, but that was actually taken from it's like German for cruel or something like that.
Yeah.
So we named him Krug.
Yeah.
But like everything, a lot of people are just named after people in his life, because Wes Craven rest his soul, man. Rest in peace. One of the greatest of all time. But like he was so messed up in his head. Like um Wes Craven's New Nightmare, when he has his speech about wanting to bring Freddy back and all that stuff. Like that was a real speech. Like that was legit. And you can see how disturbed he is as a human being in
Yeah.
that one little speech. And it's not like not saying that he was a disturbed individual. He was just in his mind. He hits differently than other people. He can come up with some very strange things, but on the outside, he's a very normal human being. It's just, you can tell he's kind of disturbed, and I think what did he die of? He died of a brain tumor. What did he die of?
I think so.
He died of something.
Because I know that he had said himself that before he had become a director and had quit his job as a professor in college was that he had suffered from sleep paralysis.
Yes.
And that's when he started writing. And he didn't even write horror back then. He did poetry, I think is what he had originally wrote.
It was a brain tumor.
Okay, so yeah. So, I mean, that could have affected his thinking and thought process right there.
4 weeks after his 76th birthday.
Like he really wasn't old at all.
No. And I do remember that death because one of the people that took it the hardest was David Arquette. And because David Arquette was very close to him because of Scream.
Yeah.
And he kind of became a mentor to David Arquette, because David Arquette wants to make movies, not be in them. And I don't know if I think he had something to do with Eight-Legged Freaks, which is, if anyone out there has not seen Eight-Legged Freaks, holy balls, it's a great freaking movie. It's like, you got to imagine what if Joss Whedon made Starship Troopers. It's like so good. Like this is phenomenal. But I digress, because spiders scare everybody. So you need to get to
even more reason to watch it. Yes. So
I want to know what scares you so I can have some ammunition for later when I text you tonight.
Well, so unfortunately for me, when I was a child, obviously I had plenty of nightmares, and unlike you, I would actually get scared by scary movies. But it wasn't until recently that I actually started having my first versions of night terrors. And unfortunately, it was kind of a stem derived from after when my dad had passed away. And for most of those dreams, like, I couldn't remember what they actually were, but the ones that have been happening more recently are ones where it's that sleep part where you think you're awake, but you're actually not really awake. You're still sleeping, you're dreaming, but you can dream of things that are going on around you. And the most recent one that I would had, which literally scared the shit out of me, was that I literally thought somebody was coming into my house and trying to get into my room and trying to come at me with, I think, a knife or something. But I just remember waking up and just like screaming, because I literally thought somebody was in my bedroom. And it's that weird moment, because of course they talk about it in movies and shows sometimes, that you think you're awake, and you'll see them go about their day. Well, then something else happens, and then they actually wake up, and that's usually generally that happens to me now.
Yeah, it's basically sleep paralysis, but you're like in that waking dream. I think it's something called something like that, something like waking dream, where you're like you are awake, but your brain isn't awake. So your brain is just like it's basically augmented reality. Just you're seeing stuff that's just not there and hearing things that aren't there and stuff like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So
for me, unfortunately, those have become my more like frightening dreams to me, just because of the fact that you think you're awake and you think something's going on. Where as a child, it's like you would see certain movies and then you would go to sleep and you would wake up thinking like, oh my God, there was a giant troll trying to eat me. But I would rather have those dreams now than the ones that I deal with now. So it's kind of weird that my scariest dreams are the ones more recent to me.
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember any of mine. So I mean, at least you can remember yours. You know, I mean,
I remember most of them. Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, I usually because my mother said that I used to have the nightmares and I'd wake up and I'd write them down and then turn them into books. Like she's like, I used to
Which
do that
is
all the
what
time,
I did. Yeah.
and I'm like,
So I 100% relate.
yeah, she's because she has a tub downstairs in the basement, like huge tub of all the stuff that I wrote as a kid, and like it's terrible because I was like 12, but she also has my God, my creative writing. I gotta find it one day, but it's my creative writing assignment that they they basically kicked me out of creative writing for because it was called Blood, but my it wasn't a creative writing class, it was an English class, but the teacher was Mr. Owenby, the only teacher I ever really liked. um but yeah, because I think Brandon will know who Mr. Owenby is. But I wrote that as a creative writing thing and gave it to him, and he liked it, he loved it, but they were like, the school was like, no, you have to rewrite that, that's too macabre and awful. And I'm like, all right. It's like it
Why did he
wasn't
let
that.
anyone else read that?
Yeah, oh, Owenby loved it. He gave me an A anyway. But it was like, I don't know, it was about some dude waking up covered in blood, and he didn't know why he was covered in blood and stuff, and like it was a nutty little thing, and it was only like a page long, but I was like, yeah, I wrote that. I think it was actually like 2 or 3
Because
pages.
that sounds so terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was called Blood, so it was like, whatever. I gotta find that. I'll find it eventually. It's around here. I have a few other ones that I've written and stuff. I'm like that I could easily turn into novels or screenplays, and they would be pretty good. So because I have a very imaginative, dark mind. This,
What's weird is you talking about that was that I had done the same thing in my creative writing
yeah.
class back in the day. And that was a couple of my stories that I had done too were based off of certain nightmares I had. Like one was based off of well, obviously, after seeing Chucky and everything,
Mhm.
you'd have these weird dreams about dolls. And I used to babysit kids. So I had wrote this short story about this babysitter babysitting these kids, and they end up inheriting this evil doll. To this day, my mom still has that short story, and she still will take it to places and have people read it and be like, "My daughter wrote this," and I'm just like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. Yeah, I still have. She still has
uh,
like little comic books I wrote when I was like 4, and it
See,
is
that's mom's for you. That is mom's for you.
she's dead now, so I can throw those away.
I
But
know.
yeah,
You,
but
well,
she had
she loved them and they meant something to
yeah,
her.
I think she even had my incomplete novel. Like it was something God, what was it? It was like all the psychics in the world are committing suicide because they know something's coming and they don't want to live to see it. And so like she has that, and I had it written out. It was like several chapters in, and she was like, "This is great. You need to finish this." And I'm like, "Eh." I'm like, "Eh." I get bored, so I'm like, "Eh." Like I had so many of those. Like she was just like, "This is phenomenal. You're such a good writer," and I'm like, "Eh." I'm like, after last night, I ain't writing shit for
20
a very,
pages.
very long time. God.
Giving you crap for writing it all at once.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's how I do it. You got to talk to Michaela. I'll write 20-page papers in hours, no problem. It's just like this one just happened to be my last one, and I had no freaking what's
Ambition.
yeah, I had
Ambition.
nothing. Yeah, I had nothing. I didn't want to do it. And I finished it and I turned it in. I'm done with college. I'm fucking done. I'm graduated. It's over. I got my bachelor's, magna cum laude. I got
Yay!
everything. What I'm in Alpha Beta Kappa. Got Alpha Beta Kappa, which is the honor society here. Um, Oh my God, it's finally over. And I wrote that 20-page paper in hours. And I finally turned it. And then I had to do a PowerPoint. I was so worried about the PowerPoint. It's like, oh, this is gonna take me forever. And it took me 20 minutes. Yes. Yes. PowerPoint's done. Yeah, but I mean but my point is like I can write anything very quickly. I have a very whenever I get an assignment, it's always I can look at the assignment and I will know exactly what I'm going to write in minutes. And I can spread that out. So like if I have an idea like about any kind of story, I can usually flesh that out. Like I even have like a romantic story that I have the complete skeleton for in a notebook. It's done. And I just haven't wrote it. And it's a romantic thing. And even Michaela's read it like, you seriously need to write this. This could actually be something. Like the people would go for this. Like she's like, if 50 Shades of Grey can be a hit, this can. I'm like, yeah, 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey was a fucking Twilight fan fiction. Oh my God.
Now apparently that's what we should be doing. Yeah. And God, your story sounds so much like mine because it's like I have so many books started but never finished. I have two books that are completely outlined in a notebook, ready to go. All I have to do is type it and just put in the filler. But because of my job, I have no ambition. And it's like I have one book that I have like halfway done. But as soon as I started the bank job, I just have no ambition to type.
Everyone knows you work at a bank.
Everybody knows. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that weird news. I will still be working at a bank because I got hired at a new job. I was going to be working at a cannabis farm because they paid better than my job at the bank, and gave my 2 weeks notice and had the weekend because I give 2 weeks notice on a Friday. Came in on Monday and my boss countered it. And so I'm still going to be working at the bank. So.
This guy called it. I called it. I said that was going to happen.
I mean, he said I was an asset to the bank and he proved it. So.
But what I was going to say about, I actually have talked to a publisher about publishing books and everything. And he was telling me, he was like, it's cool. Like, he's like, the thing about novels now is that you can self-publish and you don't have to go through a publisher. He's like, but you aren't going to make shit doing that. He's like, you're going to make nothing. But he was saying that the easiest thing to do right now is write screenplays. He's like, everyone buys screenplays. The screenplay may not ever be made, but you will make money off of it. And he's talking about like he had clients that had written 4 or 5 screenplays and sold all 5 of them. Like, oh, anything I know is like they have never been made. He's like, these production companies buy these screenplays and they never make them. They just have it back here. It's like, oh, we need a horror movie. Go into the horror vault, and then they'll pull one out. And it's like,
so in other words, when I make my novel, make it as a screenplay as well.
And screenplays are 20 million times easier to write. Because I have written a screenplay
dialogue,
and it's so much easier because all it is dialogue and description of scene, whereas a novel is dialogue, description of scene, description of area, description of like I'm like because one of the problems I have is character development. Like I have a little bit of an issue with character development. And like a lot of my characters will stay the same or they will build towards a change but never change. And the sad part is I do that on purpose because in my experience people don't change. So that's always my point. They look like they're going to change but then they revert back to what they were. And that's not something you can do in a novel. In a novel you have to have character development. So it's like I'm just trying to make a point. And I'm never going to be able to write like Stephen King because like that dude is the most long-winded writer. Like, why do I need to know about 16 characters that are in the book for 12 pages?
Yeah.
No. And I love him. He's my favorite writer. But actually, honestly, I think, and this is weird for me, but I think his son, Joe Hill, is a better writer. I've enjoyed his books far more. Like, he's awesome. I love it. But
well, when you're taught by the best.
And I have so many books, man. I was like basically counting my books because I'm thinking about getting an e-reader, a Kindle, because I have almost 2,500 books. Like,
A lot of books.
I was like, and then even
Lot of
Michaela was like, "Have you read all these?" I'm like, "Yeah."
You've read them. You give yourself credit for that. At least you've read them.
Yeah. Oh
Can
no.
you imagine having that many books and you haven't read them?
Yeah. Well, the way that I do it is I'll go out and I'll buy a bunch of books. I'll have like a stack, and that'll be for my month. Like I'll read it, but because I read about 2 or 3 books a week, so it's like I'll read that and we're done. And I have a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street books. I have Nightmare on Elm Street books that go on eBay for like $500 because I've got some rare shit in my basement. Like I love it.
Put them
Nightmare on
in
Elm
the
Street,
case
baby.
on display.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not me. Okay, sorry, my Twitter went ding. So like, oh, dude, I don't know if you saw that Rob Zombie post I did about like, I don't care that Rob Zombie puts his wife in everything because if I made movies, I'd put my wife in everything because I'm just obsessed with my wife as he is with his. I think got like like 200 likes, and I'm like, why? I'm like,
It's the world of it's the world. It's how things go.
I know I'm still trying to figure Twitter out. Like there are times when I will post something that gets like like thousands of likes, and I don't know why. Like, and then I'll post something that I think would like my ghost hunting video, which if you haven't seen it, people, you gotta see that. That is hilarious. And it gets like 20 likes. I'm like, come on, man. That was
It's
funny.
funny. Actually, it's hilarious. So.
Yes, I did. I did get a DM that I shouldn't make fun of Zach Baggins.
And you're like, but I like Zach Baggins.
I did. I was like, actually, I like Zach Baggins. It's like
that's why you based it on him.
Yeah, I'm like, now is he a charlatan and a con man? Absolutely, he is. But he is funny. He's charismatic. He makes a good show. It's just I don't believe in that stuff. But I mean, and I was not inaccurate. They say, what was that when there was no noise? It's like I'm not inaccurate in what I'm doing. Like and I've got like a whole bunch of them written down. I was going to make some more later because my buddy Laszlo. Yes, my buddy Laszlo. He sent me a freaking text that he was dying after that, and it's like, all right,
it made my day.
Yeah, I'll make
it made my day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was. I told you I was going to do it. That was for you because it was like you were like, oh, we should make ghost hunting videos.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because like you would be forward-facing Hat DC, and I would be backwards Hat DC, being like, there was no noise.
Not that kind of, but
you'd be like, what was that? I'm scared, and I'm like,
calm down, with us. A ghost hunting show with us would be really interesting because I still would be realistic about it. I believe in it, but I still would be like, what's that noise when there was nothing? Yeah. The whole episode would be like, I'm looking for something. There's gotta be something. And you'd be like, there's nothing.
I've had in high school, I did an actual ghost hunting trip with one of my friends to a, not high school, it was in college. We went to a haunted.
You told me this story.
Yeah, we went to a haunted hospital.
You got in trouble.
Yeah, we went to a haunted hospital, and he was dead serious about it. He was just like, "Oh, where is there? Oh, there's a ghost. Do you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, like I don't hear anything." And I'm like, the whole thing. We were walking around in the dark at midnight through 3 a.m. and nothing. I was like, I saw nothing. He saw so much crap. He was just like, "Oh, I saw a shadow, and I saw an orb," and I'm like, I saw the paint peeling off the wall. Like I don't like, I'm sorry. I don't get scared at these things, and I don't see these things. And it's like, but it's okay. It's cool that he had fun and I had fun making fun of the situation.
That's what our shows would be.
Yes. It was fun. And but I mean I've gotten in trouble a couple of times with people whenever I like make fun of the number 666. Like whenever I post something like it costs $6.66, that's funny. People are like, you shouldn't do that. That's making fun. I'm like, okay.
They would have hated me in retail then, because I have this story where I sold a cake to someone and it seriously came out to like 666. I'm like, oh, this cake must be sinfully good.
Yeah. See, that would have made
She
me
just
laugh. I
stared
would
at
love
me.
that shit. I would love that shit but it's like a lot. But I'll usually, whenever they say, "Oh, you shouldn't make fun of 666," blah blah blah, I usually turn it around on them, and I'm like,
Mhm.
actually, numbers only have power if you give them power, and I
Mhm.
do not give that number power. I'm like, so it's just a number to me. Like that's the thing. Like numbers are just numbers. Astrology signs are just astrology signs. I don't believe in that stuff. I don't believe that you're a bitch because you're a Gemini. That doesn't work for me. I'm like, no, you're a bitch because you're a bitch. So,
You're a bitch, Carol, because you're a bitch.
yeah, and it's like because and my whole thing is, if you are so dead set on astrology being real, what's my sign? And no one ever guesses my sign. So I'm like, yes, I love it. Oh well.
And that's only for, you're gonna find the one person that's actually going to be able to do it, and like on a cue. And you're gonna be like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna one day someone will be like, oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You're
don't give it away.
you're this
Or they'll watch
sign.
the
And I'm
episode.
like, and I'll be like, how do you think? Well, how do you figure I'm that sign? Why do you think that? And they're gonna rifle off this, what most people do, these vague things. They were like, oh, you like the color black. And I'm like, I'm literally wearing all black. So yeah. No, dude. Give me something that you could not possibly know, that because of the astrology sign. Give me something. Like, tell me how I actually feel inside instead of what I project out to everybody else. It's like, go ahead and try that one, you know? Oh, because you are this sign, and Venus is in retrograde. I'm like, okay, cool. That's really cool that you know the signs and you know the stars. It really is. So I just don't think that has any bearing on me, but it's okay. I love that you love it, and whatever makes you peaceful. Namaste. Whatever keeps you in line, honey. I love that you love that shit. I love that you love Psycho Gorman. I love that you love Cannibal Holocaust. I love that
Oh,
you
I will
love a
never
Serbian
watch that
film.
though.
I talked to a girl the other day that said that she loved the Serbian film. And I was like, dude, good on you. I can't watch that movie, but good on you. I'm glad you like that movie. At least someone does.
Yeah.
Cool. I ain't gonna flame somebody for that. I get yelled at for saying Margot Robbie isn't the best Harley Quinn. Like, come on, man. She's not.
No, you get screamed at.
Yes. Because what the dude? It's just because I don't think Margot Robbie's the best Harley Quinn. She's not great. She's not. Tara Strong, all day, every day. And then the girl who played her in the Batman animated series, that actually is the Harley Quinn, because Harley Quinn was not in the comics first. She was in the Batman animated series first.
Yep, the animated.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, those people do it better. Tara Strong played her in the video games, so that's why I love her. Batman, so great, love it. But I don't know, man. But yeah, dude, all this, you like what you like. Some people don't like Nightmare on Elm Street. We have Laszlo, who thinks Nightmare on Elm Street remake is better than the original.
Better than the original. Yep.
Go for it, man. Cool. Good on you. He loves Jackie Earle Haley. I love Jackie Earle Haley, and he was a great Freddy. He just wasn't Robert Englund. So
that's my thing. I love Robert. He's
Yeah.
so good.
And that's what we do.
But we are over an hour now, so
People will enjoy it. People will say, I will show them my boobs. That's if that's what
show them your boobies then.
Here's my boobs.
There we go.
Yeah, you didn't see my nips. My nips are tiny. They're like little pinpricks because I'm special. Mommy says so. I did have my nude mirror selfie last night on Twitter. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I kind of like disappeared for a while to do my research on my work and my stuff. I'll have to go find it later then. Okay.
That's nothing you haven't seen.
Yeah,
People are gonna be like, wait, what? Starting rumors. Wait a second, are they doing stuff? Yeah. All day, every day, while she's at work.
Oh, especially when I'm at work. God, you better send me those nudes while I'm at work. I'm
All
so
day.
busy.
And you get home and it's like, oh man, I bet you they're doing stuff. And then I'll show them our text messages. Like our 5 text messages a day. Because neither of us have time. Just like,
well, especially with your school right now. And yeah.
Here's a fun fact. I didn't even watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't have time. So
and mine was the same, because usually you and I have been finding time to watch it together, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know when I'm going to watch it. I'm like, thank God I've seen it like a million times. So
yeah, because you text me, you're like, we need to watch this. And I'm like, I don't have time, sweetheart. And
no. That's not what I text you.
Yeah.
I text you, I don't know when I'm going to have time to watch this.
Yeah, we were both just like,
and I didn't even watch it either.
And I'm just sitting here like, thank God, because I don't have time for this. And I don't like telling you no. And it's like and I was just sitting here like, I'm not going to be able to watch this. I even told Michaela, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to watch this with her this week. We don't have time. And then you text me that, and I'm
Which
like,
it worked out then, because I didn't have time. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to watch it, so we'll see.
In the year we have been friends, this week has been the week we've talked to each other the least in all in our entire friendship, because of my finals and your work. So, but it's just, oh my God. But anyway, yeah.
But enough of
maybe
us.
it'll get better. I mean, I got vacation next week, so, and Idle Hands. That's what we're doing. So get ready to watch Idle Hands with my dude Devin Sawa. I love that man so much. So Idle Hands for you guys. If you haven't seen Idle Hands, please watch it, because it is amazing. So
excited to watch that one. And hopefully we'll find time to watch that one together. We'll see.
I think we should do a disclaimer on that. We may or may not post that on Sunday. It actually depends on the Wi-Fi in the hotel room I'm staying.
Where you're at, yes.
Yes, if the Wi-Fi isn't good, we aren't going to be able to record. So we may or may not have a episode next week for Idle Hands. Just the way it is. Sorry, I need a vacation. Hey, what are we going to do on your vacation? Same thing?
We're not talking about that now. We'll talk about it later. So.
Jeez.
Oh, and my vacation's during the week, not on the weekend. So we'll be fine.
Okay. Cool.
But anyway, thank you for joining us here on Little Channel of Horrors and joining me in DC. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And
I hit my elbow.
Good. But you can find us on our Twitters and our Instagrams, although he doesn't really do his Instagram, but you can find me at Charcy Lux or Charcy87.
If you follow me on Instagram, I'll follow you. If you talk to me on Instagram, I'll talk to you. It's just, if you come to my Instagram expecting me to post, you're not going to get anything. I may post the ghost hunting videos, but if you're following me on Twitter, you're going to get those anyway. So, and my memes, I stopped posting on Instagram because Laszlo steals them anyway and posts them. Like, if you follow me on Twitter and him on Instagram, you will see the same memes over and over because he steals them. And for the record, I allow it because he is my buddy and he is allowed to steal anything, any memes, any videos that he wants, because he is the absolute shit. And I love that man with all my heart. He is the best. I love Laszlo. So good dude. So, anyway.
But
yeah.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
With our bro love. Our bro love.
No, so much bro love. I got bro love for your hubby.
Yes, you do.
Bro love for Brandon. Jeez. See, I send your husband the memes I don't post on Twitter.
The one's not appropriate.
They're not appropriate at all. And I'm like, I can't post them. So here. Yeah. That's good stuff.
But all right. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.
Toodles.